All right, welcome everyone. So this will be the first kind of daily trading recap video. I'll try to do one of these every day on the options strategy that I am kind of forward testing. And so I'll try to do one every day and see if we can do that. I'm not sure what time exactly. Just trying to dial things in a little bit on this and give a little bit more information and value to the channel here. And so let's start off with just taking a look at our Patreon only channel here real quick. And so last night, some really great analysis, Forex analysis posted by Sasquatch here. Really great stuff. Really knows what they're doing and has some wonderful value and insight into analysis into Forex. Jay here early this morning was posting some analysis, different stuff on futures. And just scrolling down here, we're kind of looking at the beginning of my day here. Again, if you don't know, if you haven't seen the first video, basically a little over a month ago, I decided that I was going to start playing around with some basic options and start testing a system that I had developed and back tested with really good results, and basically start a small account with it. It was more kind of as a joke than anything to start with $1,000 and see what I could do with it, and it just kind of kept growing from there. Within a month, I had grown the account over 100%. Still kind of dialing things in and playing with things, but so far it's working out really well. So let's go ahead and jump over to the screen here. These options are on the S&P 500, and that's the only thing that I'm currently trading the strategy on. The benefit to doing that is that you just focusing on one particular name is going to allow you to really get to know how the price action works and moves with that particular name, and really allows you to kind of dial things in instead of worrying about trying to catch the next biggest penny stock or small cap that's flying for the day. You really get to know and understand how a stock moves, and instead of just capitalizing on the first 30 minutes of momentum, you can actually have plays throughout the entire day, which maximizes your ability to be profitable. So here's the S&P 500. The areas that I have marked out here in green and purple and kind of yellow here, it's not quite yellow, but it's supposed to be yellow. These are areas of support and resistance that I have marked out using a few various different tools, but kind of historical areas of support and resistance. So the day started off with the S&P 500 gapping up. It gapped up above these areas here that kind of stalled it out on Friday, and so that was a good start to the day. It looked like it was going to maybe make the push up above this zone right here, and if it was able to do that, it really had a lot of room for it to just take off and run from there. It spiked down right here, but then as it opened, it immediately started to push up really nicely. I saw this pin bar form right here and almost pulled the trigger on a long position on calls, but it didn't quite meet my criteria, and I was a little bit worried the way I got this pin bar here in red and then immediately one right here. That means there's basically a stalemate tug of war happening between both sides, the sellers and the buyers. But then it took off here, and that's all right. You're not going to catch every move every single time, and that's something that I mentioned in the Patreon only channel. It's something you're going to have to reconcile with any system. The first trade that I called out here was this one right here. You can see that said calls here. This was at 10:20. This was a B setup, and so basically I have A setups and B setups. A's are like meets the rules 100%, the criteria 100% of the system. A B setup means that it doesn't meet all the criteria but has potential, something I'm playing with and exploring, and so I just jumped in with basically one contract here. Now keep in mind these contracts only cost about $300 a piece, depending on what mid price you jump in on. I go about 3 to 4 in the money. That tends to be around $300 to $400 for one contract. And typically I do 3 contracts at a time for A setups. And again, I'm experimenting with 1 contract at a time for these kind of B setups. And so anyways, I jumped in on this call right here. That's a long position. If you don't know options, a call is a long and a put is basically a short. And immediately I started to get rejection and pull back here. I had a very tight stop on it, so I went ahead and just jumped out for a very small loss on that one. I was then watching as the market was kind of pulling here, pin barring right there, and rejecting this area again with this big candle. And as it started to curl up right here, I thought, oh nice, it's going to take off. The sky's the limit. Once it breaks above this area, we might get a little bit of resistance, but at least first take profit and we'll be able to take off from there. But unfortunately, as soon as I jumped in on that one, and again you can see that I called that out right here, and I also designated that this was a B setup on that first one, and this was a true setup with 3 contracts. Calls again. Immediately though, it got spiked to the downside, and that worried me. I jumped out really quick on that. Got to cut our losses really quick and let our winning trades run as far as they can. And so once I cut that position, I was watching it again, and it started to curl up and reject this area once again. It kept rejecting this little area, and really had my interest as it kept pulling down and rejecting. As it started to curl up right here and kind of flag out in this area, I thought, okay, the bulls are back in charge. They're going to run it again, and it's going to spike to this area and try to make a run. And so I went ahead and jumped in on calls one more time right here, took another stab at it, but unfortunately, again, immediately it spiked down on me and rejected that area really hard. And that was kind of a very good telltale sign that the bulls were not in charge. The bears are just going to keep spiking it down every time it tries to pull up into this area, and they're trying to spike it back down out of this zone, this purple zone. And so as it pulled back here and started to break these levels right here and break and hold, not just break and reject, I decided that I was going to jump on a short position. Basically, again, those are puts. And once again, I called this out in the channel. Throughout the day, lots of great analysis by Sasquatch and the other members as well. If you're not a part of our Patreon, I highly recommend it. It's super cheap, and you get tons of information every single day. Lots of great knowledge going on in here. And so you see that I did the another try at calls right there. That was this one right here that got spiked out. And as it did that, you can see that I said that I was looking for another entry here, took a full stop position on those calls, and it flipped to these puts right here. Again, I'm posting these live as I'm actually taking these trades, each and every one. And immediately we got this nice rejection and spike to the downside, really strong, as it fell through all these stops that people had set in place right in this zone. It just spiked it down, and it fell very quick right here. Very quickly dropped out these really long red bars. Tried to rubber band its way back up into this area and maybe try to catch some upside kind of momentum, but it wasn't able to, as it kind of rolled over and then started to push itself down again. Now, the power of options is that, and I'll pull this up because this was one of the screenshots that I took here. And so the power of options is that I had one contract left right here. So I had sold 2 of the 3 contracts as it came down into my take profit area that I had called out to the patrons. And as it just continued to run that one contract down in profit, you can see here that at this point right here, if we would have sold basically at the best possible point, one contract was up 93%. And so that one contract, the average price right here was kind of how much I paid. All in all is around, like I said, $300 for one contract. And you can see that it was up over $300 at that point in time. And so that's the power, is that this was up over $100. Basically, I paid around $370 for it. It was up almost 100% at this point in time. And it wasn't that big of a move. I mean, it was a nice move, but this happens almost every single day on the S&P 500. And that was right around in this area. As it came down, it bounced, made this next move right down in here. So when I took that screenshot, I knew as we were approaching this green area, we were going to run into a lot of resistance right here, and it was just going to kind of bounce around. I was hoping that it was going to bounce and then make another nice push to the downside, blowing through this area and giving us some really, really great returns on the day. But unfortunately, it came down, it bounced, hit this area, and then started to push back up. And as it did that, I went ahead and dumped that one last contract that I had and made a really nice profit. Got back all my losses that I had taken here in the beginning of the day, and was up green a decent little amount at that point. I think a couple $100 if I'm not mistaken. As it rejected this area, I thought maybe we would get a push to the upside right here, but as it rejected this area, came up and immediately spiked back down and started to push down right here. I thought we were going to make another run for these lows, and so I jumped in on some more puts right here. Once again, I called this out in the Patreon only channel. Said puts here, that was around 130, and you can see 130. The time right there is whenever I called that out. Unfortunately, this started to push back up immediately, rejecting, then here, and then spiked its way back up into here. And as it did, I said I'm not going to sit there and hold it and take a huge loss. So I went ahead and cut it and was sitting there waiting to see what was going to happen. Sometimes it seems like a coin flip on this particular strategy, but really what we're doing is we're trying to position ourselves in the best possible place to be able to catch a shift or a breakout in the market without having to chase price action as it takes off. As you can see, when a move takes off, it takes off fast. And if you're not on it and riding that, then you're chasing it, and it's the worst possible place you can be, because you're losing positions when it goes against you are going to be so astronomical with options that it's just going to blow your account very quickly. So like I said, sometimes it seems like a coin flip. So as it rejected this area and started to push back up into this area, I thought, well, we're going to make another run. We're going to break this area and possibly shoot up nice momentum to the top side. And so I hopped on some calls right there, again, a long position. And almost immediately it rejects one more time right here. And I was super frustrated at that point, hoping that we could catch another really nice move. And so as it rejected, I sold out of that position right about in here on this candle, cut my loss really quickly. Again, just trying to maintain at least a break even on the day. And so at that point, it had put me down just a little bit on the day, or right at break even. Gave back all my gains over here on that big move. Then as we started to move down right here and spike this big red candle heading towards the low of the day, I thought we had some nice momentum to carry us even further down and down into this area. Unfortunately, as I jumped into this one right at the close of this candle, it immediately spiked back up, and I almost jumped out of it. It almost hit kind of my stop area, but I was reluctantly just kind of biting my nails and holding on to it to see where it was going to go. Had it went any farther than this, I would have dumped the whole position and been down probably $300 on the day. But luckily it started to roll over and push its way down, but it just ran into sideways consolidation right here. It was not wanting to take this any further to the downside today. I was able to jump out though with a little bit of a position and a little bit in the green, but then it immediately spiked back up. This spot right here is where I jumped out with a little bit of a green, and then it spiked back up right here. And as it did, I went ahead and dumped the rest of the position, but was far enough in the negative that it ate up a little bit of profit that I had gained on that. and put me right at basically break even on the day. This is where I had ended the day, negative $27. And so again, this account started with $1,000 and is now sitting at 2,123. Now, the great part about having a community of people is that Jay here called out and said that maybe I shouldn't be taking such a large position off the table at my first take profit. We talked about this before, but he reminded me and said, hey, you know, if I would have been holding at least 2 contracts, so 2 out of the 3, basically what I do is I buy 3 contracts, and as I hit my first take profit at just a little bit in the green, I would sell out of 2 contracts, leaving 1, like we looked at on the really big gain, and let that one just ride out for as much green as I could get. And he reminded me that, hey, if I would have been holding 2 contracts instead of 1, I would have been up a really big chunk. And so I think what we're going to do going forward is to test instead of selling out. And let's see, I think I said that somewhere. Yeah, right here. So instead of selling out of the 2 of the 3, what I'll do is just take 1 contract off table at the first take profit and let the other 2 run and offset our losing trades with some really big winning trades. Had this the position up here, the one that we were looking at with the 300% gain right here, had we been in 2 contracts at this one, obviously we would have been up $700 instead of the 350, and I would have ended the day in the green today, probably a couple $100 at least by the time it was all said and done. And so you can see how you kind of balancing those 2 out, where you need to take a little bit of risk off the table, but not too much that you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And so, all right, that's it for the day. That's where we were. That's where we stand on the small account. Tomorrow is another day. There will be lots and lots of wonderful analysis taking place in the Patreon only channel by Sasquatch and Jay, like they normally do, Forex and futures. And then I will basically be posting my trades like I normally do on the S&P 500 option small account challenge that we're working on here tomorrow, right at the open of the market. So hope to see everybody there. Again, join our Patreon if you haven't. It's super cheap and lots of information and great stuff here for you to be able to capitalize on. That's it for this video. We'll see you on the next one.